All right, Marla, thanks. Happening right now, Oklahoma voters casting their ballot in the 2014 midterm elections. Lots of folks heading to the polls despite the cool, wet weather. The polls close at 7, and once they do, we will have the latest, most accurate results on TV, online, and on your mobile phone. Of course, 2 News is working for you right now, covering all the big races. We have crews fanned out across the state. We begin with the top race on the ticket, and that is the one for Oklahoma governor. It is the biggest race. Democrat Joe Dorman and independents Kimberly Willis and Richard Prodzinski all on today's ballot. They're hoping to unseat Oklahoma's current governor, Republican Mary Fallin. She is the state's 27th governor and the first woman ever to hold that office. 2 News anchor Max Resnick has been following the Fallin campaign. He joins us now live from Oklahoma City, where the governor will be later tonight. Max?
That's right, Russ. Good evening. Within the last hour, I spoke with a member of Governor Fallin's camp who says they are, quote, feeling good and, quote, ready for a positive outcome tonight. And if you look at the polling, it's hard to find one that doesn't have Governor Mary Fallin ahead of Joe Dorman. So those expectations of positive feelings should feel right. They are 10 to 15 point favorites in most polls. If you take a look, and we caught up with the governor today. She was in Tulsa, and she says education will be top of mind if elected to her second term.
This past legislative session, we repealed and we replaced our Common Core standards, so we'll be looking forward to working with our new superintendent of education and our parents and our teachers to make sure that we develop the very best rigorous standards available.
Of course, Governor Fallin backed Common Core and made it law before repealing it. She says federal overreach is to blame for flipping on those education standards. Also, the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities shows that Oklahoma has cut more from education than any other state over the last 6 years. Whether that plays a role tonight remains to be seen. For now, live in Oklahoma City, Max Resnick, 2 News works for you.
All right, Max, thanks. Of course, Joe Dorman is challenging Republican Governor Mary Fallin, and Stephen Romo is covering his campaign for us in Oklahoma City. Max?
She will also be having her...
Yeah, Russ, we're here at the Cox Convention Center where we're waiting on Joe Dorman to arrive. He should be here at 7 o'clock today. He started his day very early at 6:30 in Rush Springs. He then headed to Tulsa, where he had a lunch event, hosted a couple events there, trying to turn out the vote, get as many people to show up to the polls as he could, get those Tulsans out to vote. As I said, he had lunch there at Guthrie Green before he'll make his way to Oklahoma City, where he'll have an event at his campaign headquarters to thank his campaign staffers and encourage them before he makes his way here. We're, of course, waiting to talk to him, follow up any information we can. As you heard from Max just a minute ago, he is behind in the polls, but there's still some excitement out here. We'll bring you everything he has to say coming up in just a little bit. Live in Oklahoma City, Stephen Romo, 2 News works for you.
All right, Stephen, thanks. And Oklahomans also voting today for a new superintendent of public instruction, also known as the state school superintendent. Republican Joy Hoffmeister defeated incumbent Janet Barisi in the Republican primary, and Hoffmeister now facing off against Democrat John Cox. 2 News reporter Joe Hinkie is following John Cox's campaign. He joins us live in Muskogee, where that campaign watch party will get going here in just a couple of hours. Joe?
Well, Russ, that's right. The party will start here in a little bit, but earlier today I talked to John Cox. He is very confident. He says he has a long list of superintendents and teachers around the state giving him support, and he believes at the end of the day he will be the next state superintendent, he tells me. Now, Cox became the Democratic candidate after winning the primary election back in August. Cox says if elected, he'll focus on increasing education funding. He thinks school funding must be restored to pre-2008 levels. Cox also wants to move away from what he calls high-stakes testing of students, and he tells me he would also work to repeal the state's A through F report card for rating schools. Now, Cox is returning to Malons here. This is where he had his primary watch party back in August. He was confident that night, and he was successful coming away with a win. We'll see if history repeats itself tonight. And coming up on 2 News at 6, I'll give you a look at Cox's professional background. Live in Muskogee tonight, Joe Hinkie, 2 News works for you.
All right, Joe, thanks. And of course, Cox is running up against Republican Joy Hoffmeister. She was in Tulsa this afternoon. 2 News reporter Liz Bryant covering her campaign. Liz?
Hey Russ, I just caught up with Joy about 2 hours ago, waving down drivers in South Tulsa. Right now we are here in downtown Tulsa at the summit, waiting for Joy to arrive in the next hour. This is going to be her Tulsa watch party as well as other Republican candidates. But let me show you Joy waving down some drivers in South Tulsa. Her final push for you to go get out and vote. Joy did not sleep last night. She knows this is a very tight race, very practical woman, but she is confident in her campaign, traveling more than 80,000 miles, spanning 77 Oklahoma counties.
Well, it's exciting, and I think that, you realize that the the fate of this election is in the hands of the voters. We've done about all we can do. And certainly I'm ready to serve, and I do believe the best days in Oklahoma education are right around the corner.
What's at stake? Joy says leadership to get things moving. She supports less testing, higher teacher pay, and wants to focus on working with lawmakers to get some more money for state education. Her final word to her competition, John Cox: may the best person win. She says that no matter the outcome, let's work together because one of us is better than Janet Barisi. Tweet me at Liz Bryant TV. I want to know what you would like to ask Joy Hoffmeister in our live interview coming up in just an hour. Liz Bryant, 2 News, works for you.
All right, Liz, thanks. A lot of people have the polls on that one between the margin of error, so it could go either way. Well, another open seat could likely send James Lankford or Connie Johnson to the U.S. Senate. And reporter Nathan Edwards has a preview of that big race.
This race is part of a special election tonight. It's a seat that normally would not be open this time around. But in January, current U.S. Senator Tom Coburn announced his early retirement, stepping down for health reasons. Lankford secured his Republican nomination in June when he beat T.W. Shannon. Johnson had to wait longer to know her fate. In August, she secured her spot on the ballot by defeating Jim Rogers in a runoff election. Tonight, both hope their strong stances will set them apart.
We have to deal with the efficiency of our spending. But you're not going to get this all just by cutting and spending, though there's a lot that can be cut. You're going to also have to get through economic growth. If the federal government continues to put a hand on the economy and slow it down, then we're never going to catch up.
I would tackle that head on by saying, let's do our work. Let's actually figure out what the needs of society, what the people are needing, and actually prioritize our spending in ways that helps people and not interest.
Independent candidate Mark Beard is also running for this seat. Now I'm heading down to Oklahoma City to bring you the latest on this race as our election coverage continues throughout the night. Reporting, Nathan Edwards, 2 News works for you.